This is Dhananjarian, Assistant Professor from Savita Engineering College. So today in this STTP, we are going to look into computer network based competitive exam questions. So actually our agenda is to complete both communication and networking based questions. So when it comes to gate perspective, we may not be getting much of computer network based questions. But when it comes to competitive exams like Tangentco exam for assistant engineers, TRB Polytechnic, TRB, PGTRB, so we will be getting quite a number of networking questions. So we always feel networking questions are our comfort zone, so we can easily crack. If you take Tangentco questions for EEE, they may expect 4 to 5 questions. For ECE, we can expect around 5 questions. For CSE and IT, we may expect around 6 to 7 computer network questions. So yes, there is a good opportunity of cracking all the 7 or 6 questions which is asked in the competitive exam, if and only if we know the concepts. Okay. We all well versed about what, like the basic concepts of computer networks, but when it comes to answering, yes, there are little more detailing we need to give. In this presentation, I have chosen few simple questions which is asked in 2017 Tangentco and 2017 diploma, TRB diploma. So simple questions are also there, and a little questions like the questions involved with little mathematics, or we can solve these questions with simple logical, concepts also. So this presentation is all about basic and repeatedly appearing computer network questions. I think we can start now. So what we are going to do here is we are going to discuss the question and why this answer has occurred. Okay, so we are going to discuss the logic behind each and every question and answer. I hope you will. I hope this session will be an informative session for you. So our first question is, which of this is not a network edge device? See, when it comes to our internet infrastructure, we have end devices and we have network intermediary devices. So this is otherwise called as edge devices. So network edge device is a device which happens to be connecting the customer endpoint, or the network edge device is a device which is going to be present close to the customer. Okay. So now we look into the options. The options are PC. The other option is smartphone. Another one option we have is server, and the fourth option is going to be switch. So PC, smartphone, and servers are always happen to be end devices. We may think server is a part of a network device, like that we can think, but server will never be a network infrastructure device. It will be a end device. Server is kept even at the organization side or even at the end user side. Server is always kept as a end device. So all the three options ruined out. Only one option we have, it is nothing but a switch. So for the first question, our option D is going to be the right option. So to answer this question, we need to know what is the edge device. So the second question is, application layer is implemented in where actually the application layer is implemented. See, we have studied ISO OSA layers. So there are 7 layers in ISO OSA model. There are 4 layers in TCP/IP model. So where this application layer is actually realized, implemented. So we have 4 options here. One is end system, and another one is NIC, and another one is Ethernet, and the D is none of the mentioned above. So NIC is called network interface card, and C is our Ethernet. So definitely NIC is not going to be the option, and C is Ethernet. This is also not going to be an option. So end system. See, actually application layer is implemented in OS, operating system. In some cases, virtual operating system, or in least cases, it is implemented on a browser. Next, we'll move on to the third question. Transmission control protocol. So we all very much aware about TCP, transmission control protocol. So this question is going to test the basic about TCP. So transmission control protocol is, it's a very basic question which has happened in Tangentco exam for assistant engineers. So the question is, TCP is connection oriented protocol, It uses three-way handshake to establish a connection, receives data from application as a single stream, all of the mentioned. So for this question, I think we can answer hands down because we know TCP is a connection-oriented protocol and it uses three-way handshake mechanism for establishing connection, and it prefers streamed-based data services. So I think for third question, our option can be D, all of the mentioned. Next question is, the 4-byte IP address consists of. So we all know what is an IP address. So IP address is a 32-bit dotted decimal identifier which is given for a network implemented device. It can be a network device or it can be a host computer which is present inside any network. It can be a local area network or it can be a wide area network or whatever may be the network infrastructure. Yes, but what about IP address? So what it is going to have? See, IP address is divided into two portions. One is called network address and another one is called host address. So how it is classified? How it is classified? Network address is classified based on one important parameter we all know, subnet mask. So subnet mask is going to tell us what is the network portion of the given IP address and what is the host portion of the given IP address. Okay. For example, we'll take, excuse me. So here itself I'm trying to give. Praveen sir, is it audible? Is it going good?
Yeah, it's audible, Dhananjayan. Go
Okay,
ahead.
sir. Okay, sir. Okay. So here I am going to give a simple IP address. We all know there is a class-based classification. So we have class A address, class B address, class C address, class D and E. So D is meant for multicasting, E is meant for reserved purpose. So we are not using those. But we are aware of A, B, and C. So now what I am doing is I am taking a class C address 192.10.10.2. So in this address, right? So let us take a subnet mask for this address as 24, prefix is 24. It means the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. So now what the subnet mask is going to tell me? So this first three octets, right? 255.255.255, it means the subnet. What it is going to tell me is this three octets in a given IP address is reserved for network portion. But what about the remaining one? The 2 is reserved for host portion. So when I see an IP address and subnet mask, I can easily tell what is the network address and what is the host address. For this particular question, the network address can be 192.10.10.0/24. This is the network address. So any incoming packet coming or entering into my network will enter in my network using this particular network identifier. And host address is nothing but 192.10.10. So when you see an IP address with prefix or subnet mask, I can identify two portions. One is the network address as well as host address. So for this particular question, we have option C. So both A and B will be the option. So is it okay, Praveen sir? Is it audible, sir?
Yeah, okay, Dhananjayan.
Okay, fine. So next we'll move on to my next question. See, most of the questions when it comes to triple AE tangent core questions for triple E, the questions are asked from framing concepts. Okay, when it comes to framing, we have two methods. One is fixed length framing and another one is variable length framing. When it comes to variable length framing, we have two approaches. One is called bit oriented approach and another one is called byte oriented approach, or otherwise I can say bit counting and byte counting approaches. So we have a question on this. This is also a competitive exam question only. So in dash protocols, we use dash. For answering this question, we need to read our answer only. So byte oriented protocol, we use bit stuffing. Character oriented protocol, we use bit stuffing. Bit oriented protocol, we use bit stuffing, and none of the above. So as I told you, we have when it comes to variable length framing, we have byte oriented approach and bit oriented approach. So bit stuffing or byte stuffing, both the cases we are using when it comes to byte-oriented protocol, we stuff a byte in order to avoid the escape character getting replicated in the message itself. So we stuff a byte of data. So we stuff 8 bits into the data portion. So that is called byte stuffing. So when it comes to bit stuffing, we will deal with bits. We are not going to consider data as bytes. So you can choose 36 bits, you can choose 80 bits, you can choose 100 bits. It is not multiples of any bytes. But what is bit stuffing is when there is a flag getting repeated, voluntarily we are going to stuff a 1 or 0 in order to avoid the delimiter getting repeated. It means what? For framing, we need to mention the boundaries. The boundaries are mentioned in framing using flags, or otherwise we can call it as sentinel characters. Okay. So if the flag is repeated inside the data, we are going for bit or byte stuffing. So for this question, there is only one option. In bit-oriented protocols, we perform bit stuffing. It is straight question. I hope you can understand. Next. It is again a very simple question. In high-level data link control, HDLC. So we all know SDLC and HDLC. So SDLC is a IBM developed protocol, and HDLC is the later on developed version from SDLC. So high-level data link control protocol. Again, HDLC is also using a framing method. So what type of a framing method is used by HDLC? We have 4 options here. One is bit oriented, and another one is byte oriented, another one is character oriented, and none of the above. Byte oriented and character oriented both are same, but HDLC uses bit oriented approach, and it uses a flag of 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and 0. It uses a 8-bit flag. So starting with 0 and ending with 0, in between we have 6 ones. So that is the flag used by HDLC, and it is a bit oriented approach. So for the 6th question, we have our option. It is bit oriented approach. So this is about HDLC. And the next one is when the receiver sees 5, again, this is also again, we are talking about framing. So when the receiver sees 5 consecutive incoming ones, see again I'm telling, when it comes to AE, assistant engineer, competitive exams in TangentCo, mostly we can receive questions under this particular topics like framing. Okay, it is considered as a very important topic. So again, I have taken one more question under this. So when the receiver sees 5 consecutive incoming 1, that is 1 bits, followed by a 0 bit, it automatically destuffs in bit stuffing. So what it is going to destuff? So again, for answering this question, we need to know what is bit stuffing. Okay. So as I told you earlier, okay, again I'm solving this here. So 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0. This is called a flag. So this is the flag which is used. Say, let us assume I am having a data. So 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1. So this 8-bit is my data. I'm just highlighting this. So this 8-bit is my data. I'm bolding this. This 8-bit is my data. And again, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0. So now this is a frame. This is a bit stuffed frame. You can see here, the 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0 is the flag, or otherwise I can say frame delimiter. What it is going to do? It is going to set a boundary for my data. So what is my data? 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. So this is the essence of framing. So you have data, and there are 2 sentinel characters or 2 flags which is protecting the frame. So this is going to set the boundary. Okay, when a receiver sees 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, it assumes that the incoming, the next bit or next incoming bit is going to be data. So now what is bit stuffing? I don't want to see, there are more chances where the same flag bit, okay, the flag is nothing but 0, 0, 1, 1, 0. The same flag can itself replicated inside data. So there is a possibility of this, that is 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0. So now what if the receiver encounters this scenario? Again, receiver may take a decision, wrong decision, that this is maybe a starting of flag or ending of flag. So to avoid this, we are going for a bit stuffing. How the bit is stuffed here is, whenever there are 5 consecutive incoming ones, so in this case, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So there are 5 consecutive ones. I don't want the pattern to be repeated. So I automatically stuffs a 0 here. So this is called bit stuffing. This is called bit stuffing. So when a receiver sees 5 consecutive ones after a 0, it is going to destuff the 0 bit and it takes it as a data. So I don't want my data to be considered as a flag. So now what I'm doing is whenever there are 5 consecutive ones inside my data portion, I am purposefully stuffing a 0 bit before every consecutive 5 ones. So what the receiver is going to do is it is going to destuff the 0 at the receiver side. So for answering this question, our answer will be option B, that is 0 bit. Next, our next question will be, to deliver a message to the correct application program running on a host, the dash address must be consulted. Okay, so it is very simple and open question. So here I am talking about application program running on a host. So there are 2 hosts running different application programs. So when I talk about application program, I am talking about process address or port address. So it's a very simple question. So for this, options are IP, MAC address, and port address. So for this particular question, the answer is going to be port address, because any application on internet is identified based on port number or port address. Port address is a 16-bit identifier. Next question. This is a time sensitive service. So there are, again, it's a very open question. So there are 4 services given here, out of which 1 service is a time sensitive service. First one is called file transfer. File transfer is obviously, it is not a time sensitive service. File downloading services are not time sensitive. Email is not a time sensitive service. But internet telephony need synchronization. Internet telephony need synchronization, right? So whenever you transmit a data, right? So the very important protocol called SIP, session initiation protocol, comes into picture. It maintains the session and it maintains the time sensitiveness of this particular conversation. So the option for this particular 9th question is internet telephony. It is a direct and straight question. Next we'll look into DHCP. Okay. So DHCP, I hope we can understand what is DHCP. It is called Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. So the question is very straight, whether DHCP is used for IPv6 and IPv4. This is the question. Our options are IPv6, only DHCP is used under IPv6 conditions, or IPv4 conditions, or both A and B conditions. Okay, that is IPv6 and IPv4. So let me tell you what is first DHCP is about. DHCP is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. So I have my computer or I have my systems in my organization. I want to assign IP address dynamically. It is not automatic, it is dynamically, right? So I don't want to go into any computer manually and type my IP addresses. So what I will do, I will create a DHCP database, or otherwise called as DHCP pool, and I will get IP addresses automatically whenever my system boots up. So this is called DHCP. So we may have a myth. Okay, somebody may told like whenever IPv6 is implemented, there is no need for DHCP. It is a wrong statement. So if you think like that, you will go for option B and you will say DHCP is used for IPv4, but it is not the case. DHCP used for both IPv4 and IPv6. Even after you implement IPv6, any device on internet needs IP address dynamically. Definitely, whether it is IPv6 or IPv4, we need DHCP. So for answering this question, the option will be C. So both A and B. So DHCP is used for IPv4 and IPv6. And our next question, again, under DHCP only I have taken this question. So the DHCP server can provide the dash of IP addresses. As I told you, there are 3 different ways of IP address allocation. The first one is the contemporary or conventional static allocation, where the network administrator goes to each and every system and goes to the network setting properties, and there he will give the IP address, subnet mask, DNS address, everything. So that is manual allocation. That is called static allocation. The second one is called automatic allocation. So where you can assign automatically all the IP address. For example, I'm having 100 IP address. You can give all the IP addresses, 100 IP address automatically. There is no need to go into each and every system. But there is a drawback here. If it is automatic allocation, then all the 100 IP address will never come back to my database, so that I cannot reuse the IP address. The third one is dynamic allocation. Dynamic allocation is least based allocation. That is the reason why the world uses DHCP for IP address allocation. So dynamic allocation is least based allocation. So once a computer closes its DHCP session, for example, I am giving my DHCP duration as 2 days. So after 2 days, automatically the IP address I used will go back or returned back to the DHCP database. So for answering this question, the option will be A, dynamic allocation. So DHCP server can provide dynamic allocation of IP addresses. Yes. Is it okay? Praveen sir?
Yeah, okay, Dhananjayan.
Okay, sir. Fine. Fine, next. Again, we'll move on to the next question. Again, this question is based upon a TCP. Again, very simple TCP question. See, we may expect questions like this, but nowadays they are started asking questions like certification exam level questions also they have started asking. But when it comes to TRB Polytechnic and the TangentCo, again, the questions are asked from basic level. What we need is the basic level of understanding. If we have it, yes, we can crack it like anything. 6 question to 7 question, yes, we can get all 6 out of 7, 6 and 7. Next, so a dash is a TCP name for transport service access point. The question may look like a little different, but it is very simple. Whenever I talk about port number, it is directly connected with TCP. Whenever I talk about port number, it is directly connected with either TCP or UDP. Whenever I talk about port, I talk about transport layer. So the option for this is port. A port is a TCP name for a transport service access point. Okay. Next question is Dash is the standard developed by ANSI for fiber optic network. Dash is the standard developed by ANSI for fiber optic network. Okay, fine. So here the option is A. SONET is the standard. The SONET is the standard which is developed by ANSI for fiber optic networks. It is a state and just an informative question. Next. This is a question which is relevant to TDM data transmission. We all know what is TDM. It is time division multiplexing. So we can have a number of slot that is called the time slots. So if a user is given one slot and the user can able to use the entire bandwidth, this is the advantage of TDM. So most of the digital data transmission is based on TDM, especially when it comes to networking. We use TDM type of data transmission. So now the question is, if there are n signal sources of the same data rate. So now I have n channel, let us assume n signal source. So each source will be transmitting data in a different channel. So let us assume the channels are also going to be n. And the data rate is same. See, when it comes to TDM, data rate is not going to be a problem. So each user is going to use his own time slot. That is TDM. So then TDM link has how many slots? So there are n signal sources. Let us assume there are n users. So how many slots are available with TDM? So it is very straight and obvious. If we have n channels or n users, definitely we can have n number of slots in a general TDM link. So for answering this question, our option is going to be A, option A, n. Next question is again under TDM. This is also under data transmission. So 14th question is, if a link transmits 4,000 frames per second, so there is a frame rate given, that is 4,000 frames per second, and each slot has 8 bits. So there are number of data to be transmitted is given. Then the transmission rate of a circuit in TDM is, this is the question they have asked. So it is very simple. So they have given the, we can say like data rate, and we know what is the data, and now what is going to be the transmission rate. So we all know this. So data rate into the size of data. So in this case, transmission rate into the number of bits is going to give me the transmission rate. So for this particular question, there are 4,000 frames given. Okay, so the answer will be like this. So we have to find out transmission rate PR, which is equal to the number of frames into number of frames into data. Okay, so for this, what we will get is the transmission rate is direct, is nothing but frame rate is 4000 frames, and into data size is 8 bits. So now we have the answer here. So the answer is 4000 into 8, that is 32,000. So convert it into kbps, it is 32 kbps. So we have 32,000 bits per second will be my transmission rate, or otherwise it is 32 kbps. For this particular question, the answer is going to be 32 kbps. For this question, answer is going to be 32 kbps. Yes. Next, we have another question. Again, we may get questions like this. Maybe in near future also we may get questions like this. So bandwidth, delay, propagation, and data transmission. So under these places, we may get little problematic questions. Okay. So the next question is, for a 10 Mbps Ethernet link, so the data rate of the link is 10 Mbps. If the length of the packet is 32 bits, so the packet length is also given. What is the transmission delay? What is the transmission delay in microseconds? In microseconds. So they already gave it is in microseconds. Okay, unit is in microseconds. So now it is very simple. They have given us the data rate. So the data rate dr is nothing but 10 Mbps, 10 megabits per second. That is nothing but 10 power 6. 10 into 10 power 6. So that is going to be my data rate. And the number of packets, packet length. Okay, the length of the packet is 32 bits. So 32 bits. So what is going to be the delay, transmission delay? So the transmission delay is calculated as the length of the packet or length of the data transmission divided by the data rate or speed. Okay, so now the delay, transmission delay, TD is nothing but 32 is going to be the length of the packet divided by 10 Mbps. 10 into 10 power 6. 10 into 10 power 6. Okay. 10 into 10 power 6. So if you solve this, what we will get is 3.2 into 10 power minus 6 will be the answer, which is obviously 3.2 microseconds, which is 3.2 microseconds. So for this particular question, 15th question, the answer is 3.2 microseconds. Answer is 3.2 microseconds. So now next we'll move on to the next question, 16th question. So in the transfer of file between server and client, if the transmission rates along the path is 10 Mbps, 20 Mbps, and 30 Mbps, they have given 3 transmission rates. Okay, I want to send a file between a server and a client. There are 3 different transmission rates. Sorry, 4 different transmission rates is given: 10 MB, 20 Mbps, 30 Mbps, and 40 Mbps. What is the throughput usually? What is the throughput? So we know throughput. What is throughput? So amount of data transmitted per unit time. Okay, over the entire transmission. Okay, but throughput is nothing but is the minimum bandwidth utilized. Is nothing but the minimum bandwidth utilized when it comes to the data transmission. So in this particular example, the throughput, they have given 4 bandwidths. One is 10 Mbps, and another one is 20 Mbps, another one is 30, and another one is 40 Mbps. So definitely, what can be the throughput? The throughput, we can say ideal throughput can be 40 Mbps, but the practical throughput is 10 Mbps, because that is the lowest speed of this data transfer, or that is the lowest transmission rate of this data transfer. For answering this question, your option is going to be option B, 10 Mbps. It is just logical answer we can give. So I have a file to be transmitted between server and the client. So what is the throughput? Because I am not dealing with only one speed, I may get maximum of 40 Mbps and minimum of 10 Mbps. So generally, the throughput or practical throughput is going to be the lowest bandwidth which is utilized. So here in this case, the lowest bandwidth or transmission rate is going to be 10 Mbps. I hope you can able to understand. 16th question, the option will be option B, 10 Mbps. Next question. This question is based on delay. Okay, so like we have end-to-end delay, we have processing delay, we have queuing delay, we have transmission delay, we have propagation delay. So this question is about a nodal delay. So the question is, the total nodal delay is given by. The total nodal delay is given by. So the total nodal delay is like calculating end-to-end delay, calculating like end-to-end delay. So end-to-end delay is a component of all type of delay happens when we transmit our data. So very important delays happens in a networking like environment are, first one we will deal with processing delay, we will deal with queuing delay, we will deal with transmission delay, and we will deal with propagation delay. Okay, so we know what is processing delay and we know what is queuing delay. So when I sent my first data, definitely there won't be any queuing delay, but if I'm sending my second chunk of data, definitely this data has to wait in the queue for several amount of time before it is getting processed. And third one is transmission delay. Okay, so transmitter and receiver is there, yes, how long it takes to reach from sender A to receiver B. And propagation delay, so it is medium dependent delay. Propagation delay is medium dependent delay. So whether I'm going for a wired medium or whether I'm going for a wireless medium, yes, depending upon that the delay happens. Whether the data is traveling through air, yes, there is a different delay. Whether the data is traveling through glass, that is fiber, there is a different propagation delay. So for answering this question, we have 4 options. I think for this, the option will be the nodal delay, D nodal is equal to, it is the addition of 4 delays. One is propagation delay, that is D proc, and queuing delay, DQ, transmission delay, D trans, plus propagation delay, D prop. So the answer will be C for answering this particular question. And next one is a very little interesting question, but all are basics only. But yes, mostly we will get questions like theory based questions, but this question will make us to go back to a basic equation, okay, for routers. Yes, so the 18th question is, if there are n number of routers from a source to destination and the total end-to-end delay in sending a packet P, where L is the number of bits in the packet and R is the transmission rate. So what we need to find out is, we need to find out end-to-end delay. So which is equal to what? So this is the question given. So here it is again a simple mathematical formula, and it is a standard formula. Okay, so for calculating how many routers we need in between source and destination, we have formulas. And similarly, what is the end-to-end delay when I use a router with standard number of packet size? So what can be the formula? So now for this particular question, we have 4 options. So the end-to-end delay is equals to n, option A. Option B will be n into L divided by R. Option C, 2n into L divided by R. Option D, L divided by R. So for this particular question 18, our answer will be n into L divided by R. So n will be the number of routers present between source to destination, and L will be the number of bits in a packet divided by transmission rate. So if you want to calculate end-to-end delay, so I have a node A which is present in US, node B or a computer which is present in India, right? So there are n routers. Let us assume there are 10 routers present in between node A and node B, and the packet size is going to be 32 bits, and the transmission rate is going to be 10 Mbps. Now we have an equation directly to calculate what is the end-to-end delay. So it can be 10 routers into L, that is 32, divided by 10 Mbps. So this is the standard formula we follow for this particular question. So for 18th question, our option will be B. It is n into L divided by R. I hope you can understand. So for few of us, this may be like very basics, But yes, this session is all about dealing with competitive exam questions, and it is like kind of giving a little brush up to the basics. Okay, this is how I consider this particular session. Yes, if anything to be improved, yes, at the end of the session, yes, you can give your feedback. I will be seriously happy to receive your feedbacks at the end of this particular session. Next, we'll move on to the next question. 19th question, again, it is a DNS based question, application layer question. So a DNS client is called. See, generally DNS uses different terminologies. Okay, so here they have given 4 options. Option A is DNS updater, option B is DNS resolver, option C is DNS handler, option D is none of the mentioned. So for DNS client is otherwise called as DNS resolver, because this DNS client or DNS resolver, it is going to run at the client side machine. So for example, right now I am surfing in my browser. So what happens, I am entering a domain name, and as soon as I press enter button, what happens, the client side DNS resolver starts resolving. So it starts searching for the appropriate IP address for the entered domain name. So if the IP address is present inside my cache memory, it will directly go and it will fetch the IP address, and it makes the process more faster. If not, it will go up to the root server, right? That is called root domain, and from there it will start the DNS processing. Okay, we all know the hierarchy. Okay, so it will go for hierarchy based resolver. Okay, so for this particular question, the answer will be DNS resolver. So a DNS client is called DNS resolver. So the next question is, if a server has no clue about where to find addresses for the host name, then what the server is going to do? So again, this is also a DNS based question I have taken. So there is a DNS server. Let us assume I have a server in India for Google. Let it be a mirror server for DNS resolution. So now this particular mirror server doesn't know where to look after the request given by the client. Okay, so now whom this particular server is going to ask? Whom this particular server is going to ask? This is the question. So we have options, 4 options. We'll see one at a time. So option A is server asks to the root server. Server asks its adjacent server. Request is not processed, none of the mentioned. So yes, option A will be the right answer, because the mirror server or whatever, the DNS server is going to ask the root server first. The DNS server is going to ask the root server first. See whether it is recursive resolution or whether it is iterative resolution of DNS. Okay, in both the cases, the node or a server must contact root server first. Whether it is, there are 2 types of DNS resolution. I hope we can recollect this. One is called iterative DNS resolving, and another one is called as recursive resolving. Okay, so in both the cases, root server must be asked. For answering this question, your option will be answer A. Yes. 21st question is, it is about telnet. Okay, so we all know telnet, I guess. Telnet is used for remote login purpose. So the question is very simple question and a straight question. So there are options given. Telnet is used for what purpose? So telnet is used for remote login. So there are different options given in here: television on net, network of telephones, remote logging, and teleshopping sites. Okay, it's a very simple and easily crackable question. Okay, so I'll tell you what is this remote login is all about. For example, I am a network administrator. I configure a router or a switch physically inside my organization. See, these devices need, if any configuration needs to be done, I have to be present physically close to my device in order to configure this. But Telnet gives me a privilege of configuring the devices or login into my devices remotely from wherever I want. What I want is just a internet connectivity. Okay, so instead of being physically present inside my organization, if is there any fault happens, or if there are any places where I need to do the fault tolerance, okay, or troubleshooting, so I can create a login. Okay, I can create a telnet line. Okay, so that I can log in from wherever I am working with in a remote fashion. So that is the application of telnet. Okay, so this very useful, like invention of like networking and infrastructure. So remote login. So to make it better, but this remote login, username and password, everything is plain text, and you can just go to any helping tools or softwares. You can log in from command line interface, or you can use Teraterm or Putty as a emulator. You can log in for Telnet using those. But here it is a plain text. There is no security here. Okay, so it is easily crackable. And what if someone like a person who is not belonging to your network logging, he gets your credentials, and whatever we keep as our passwords are just plain text passwords. It is very easily crackable. See, I'll give you an information. So our Gmail passwords, what we keep, minimum length of 8 or even 16 digit passwords, what we keep, if we use plain text and numbers or even special characters, it will take hardly 1 or 2 milliseconds to crack your password. That is the reason why it is advisable to use paraphrase. Sorry, it is not like paraphrase, it is password phrase, rather than using a plain text and special symbols or characters. So it is better, or it is advisable to use phrases as your password. For example, it is like you can give a password something like this. Okay, I am a my password is something like this. So DNA forever is going to open this computer. So maybe you may have a lengthy password, but these passwords it cannot be cracked, or even if they are going to try, it will take 300-400 years to crack. Okay, that is why cyber security specialists are offering, they are advising us to keep password phrases rather than plain text or number or special character based passwords. See, even you keep 16 digits as your password, it is easily doable within 1 or 2 minutes. You can easily crack. So now we are going for the next question. It is a continuation of Telnet. So SSH uses dash. SSH uses dash to authenticate remote computer. Telnet doesn't have any encryption mechanism, but the later on they have came up with something called SSH. It is nothing but secured shell. It is used for same remote login through command line interface. It is called the shell login. So it uses public key cryptography to authenticate remote computer. So in generally how we configure SSH is, we will use 1024 point RSA algorithm or 2048 bit RSA algorithm for configuring SSH key. Okay, so what we do is we create a crypto key and we will add this particular crypto key to a SSH domain. Okay, so this question number 22 has different options. A is public key cryptography, B is private key cryptography, C is any public or private key cryptography, D is both public key or private key. For 22, the option will be A, public key cryptography. Okay, we use RSA algorithm in general for SSH. Next, we'll move on to 23rd question. Which standard TCP port is assigned for contacting SSH servers? Okay, again, this is also based on SSH. So for answering this question, we need to know port number. There are so many well-known port numbers are available. For example, if you take HTTP, it is 80 is the well-known port number. If you take SSH, the port number is 22. If you take a DNS, I think it is 51. So there are well-known port numbers. These port numbers are repeatedly asked in so many competitive exams. So for this question, we have different options. So option A is 21, option B is 22, option C is 23, and option D is 24. For this question, the SSH port number is 22. SSH port number is 22. And the next question, which component is included in IP security? Yes, this is a very important question. We will talk about IP security. So whenever we talk about IP security, we talk about HTTPS. So we all know what is HTTPS. So HTTP is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. HTTPS is Secured Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It includes IP security. HTTPS includes IP security. So there are so many options given here. What is the component included in IP security? So A is authentication header, B is encapsulating security payload, and C is internet key exchange, and D is all of the mentioned. See, for this particular question, the option will be D, all of the mentioned, because it uses authentication header. Your HTTPS or IP security, it uses authentication header To secure the payload, it uses encapsulation method. So that is encapsulation security payload. So uses minimal encapsulation for payload security, and it uses internet key exchange. So it uses a third party, right, between client and a server to exchange key, so that this entire HTTP transmission and reception of data will be even more secure. Okay, so that is the advantage of actually going for HTTP. See, today if you are using HTTP, right, then your particular site is coming under a vulnerable site. Okay, your particular site is coming under a vulnerable site, right? So HTTPS is considered as a certified original site or a authenticated site for secured data transmission. So for this particular question, the option will be D. Okay, so this question is relevant to HTTPS. Next question, 25th question, PGP. PGP means pretty good privacy policy or pretty good privacy. So PGP encrypts data by using a block cipher called. So this is a question coming under PGP. Again, where we use this PGP? PGP is used in email security. Generally, PGP we use for email security. So what type of a block cipher or encryption mechanism we use for PGP? So they have given different options. Option A, International Data Encryption Standard algorithm, or IDEA. Option B, private data encryption algorithm. Option C, internet data encryption algorithm. Option D, local data encryption algorithm. For this question, your option is going to be A, PGP encrypts data by using a block cipher called IDEA. That is International Data Encryption Algorithm. All right. Next, we'll move on to the next question, 26. So this question is based on IPv6, especially implementation of IPv6. Okay, so there is a scenario given here. Suppose there are two IPv6 nodes wants to interoperate using IPv6 datagrams. Okay, there are a sender A and a receiver B. Both wants to exchange IPv6 datagram, but they are connected to each other by an intervening IPv4 routers. What can be the best solution to operate? So just imagine a scenario like this. Source is implemented with source network is IPv6 network, destination network is IPv6 network, but in between we have IPv4 routers. How to make data transmission possible? There are some migration techniques available or some mitigation techniques available in this case. So there are options given here. One is dual stack approach. Next one is tunneling approach. C is no solution. D is replace the system. So when we implement IPv6, we cannot implement IPv6 for our entire network. Okay, and there is no need to do so also. So if there is a scenario like this, my external network is IPv6 and like destination external network is also IPv6, but my internal network is IPv4. Means I can make data transmission between both, but internal network is IPv4. Yes, I have a solution. The solution is called tunneling or IPv4 tunneling. So in tunneling, what we do, we will encapsulate the IPv4 address, right, over IPv6 address. So what happens? A new encapsulated IPv6 address will tunnel the data through the internal network, or it will skip the internal network and it may reach the destination. So the solution is called tunneling. There are different types of tunneling available. We have IP in IP tunneling. We have generic routing encapsulation when it comes to tunneling. So tunneling is the basic phenomenon behind our virtual private networks, VPNs. See, more oftenly we use VPN in nowadays for privacy. Okay, so VPN provides security and privacy, but the basic essence of VPN is tunneling. Next, 27th question. So we have still 3 more questions to go to wind up this particular session. 27th question. This question is again based on delay. So here in a network, if P is the only packet being transmitted and there was no earlier transmission, which of the delay could be 0? So again, it's a very fair and logical question and simple question to ask answer. So there are 4 options. One is propagation delay, and another one is queuing delay. The third option is transmission delay, and the fourth option is processing delay. Okay. So now, how to answer this question? It's very simple. So if P is the only packet being transmitted and there was no earlier transmission, so the condition is very simple. See, I don't have second packet or I don't have a previous packet. Only one packet I am transmitting and I am sending. Definitely I can have processing delay, I can have transmission delay, I can have propagation delay. But since there is no earlier transmission and there is no other packet to be received, so what happens here? Here the packet is not going to be queued. Here the packet is not going to be queued because directly I can process the packet because it is the only packet I am transmitting. So if that is the case, so we don't have queuing delay for this particular scenario. So again, I'm repeating, in a network, if P is the only packet being transmitted, there was no earlier transmission also. So which of the following delay could be 0? So for this, the answer is queuing delay. The queuing delay will be 0. Next question, we'll move on to the next question. In IPv6 addresses, the addresses that starts with 8 zeros are called. See, there are standard addresses available even in IPv4 and also IPv6. So when it comes to IPv4, there are unicast addresses, what we use for our in computers. If you take your mobile phone, it will receive an IPv4 address. It is a unicast address. And there are group of nodes can be targeted. So that is called multicast address. And whenever there is an unknown, like path, or whenever there is a, how to say, untagged data to be transmitted, I need anycast address, or we know about loopback addresses, and there is one address called reserved address. Okay, there is one address called reserved address. This is also similar to the loopback address what we see in IPv4. Okay, so it is like this, 8 zeros. So we all know IPv6 address is of 128 bit and it is hextet format. Each hextet is divided by a colon, and totally we can have an hexadecimal combination of 8 hextet. Okay, so this will be the format. So 0 colon 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 0. So it is all 8 zeros we need to put. So there are 8 zeros here. This can be otherwise represented as just a 0 colon colon 0. This is also possible. This is a simplified version. Okay, so this address is a special address called reserved address. It is similar to the loopback address, but I'll tell you what is the significance of this particular address. For example, whenever our computer doesn't have an IP address, it requests for DHCP to give the IP address. What it will do is it will broadcast the DHCP request. So DHCP request is a broadcast in the sender address and the receiver address. What the device will do is, the receiver address is a broadcast address, so it will put all F when it comes to MAC address. When it comes to IP address, it will put 255.255.255.255, or otherwise the network with 255. But the source address will be 0.0.0.0 for IPv4. What it means? It means that I don't have an IP address, provide me an IP address. Okay, so this 0.0.0.0.0.0, the 8 zeros in IPv6 also a kind of a reserved address. Okay, so this is about IPv6 address. We'll move on to the next question, 29th question. It is a scenario, and it is a very simple and this scenario will make us to think little bit. So there is a scenario given, and we have to go through the scenario, and based on the scenario, we have to answer this particular question. Okay, I'll explain you this question. So a network administrator is connecting host A and B directly. So we can assume it is a point-to-point connection or a dedicated connection, right? It's a point-to-point connection. So two computers are directly connected through a straight-through cable here. You can see here in this case, this is sender A and this is receiver B, and both are connected using a straight-through cable. This is a notable point here. Okay, and I am trying to ping between sender A and receiver B. And sender's IP address is 192.168.1.20, and the receiver's IP address is 192.168.1.201. Okay, and subnet mask of the sender is 255.255.255.240, and the receiver subnet mask is 255.255.255.240. So now the question is, what we are going to do is, so ping attempts between host are unsuccessful. I'm trying to ping between sender and the receiver. Ping is not happening. Okay, I'm not getting any reply. All my pinging packets are going down. What can be done to provide connectivity between the host? So what we can do, right? So looking into the scenario, first thing I am noting here is it is a straight through cable. What is the cable used? See, whenever I connect two computers, I always use crossover cable. Okay, we know what is crossover cable and we know what is, I hope, straight through cable. So crossover cable is the one network cable which is used. It is a simple twisted pair cable, but the connections are crossed over. This is a cable we always use to connect similar kind of devices. Here I am connecting two computers directly. Both the computers are same, right, in terms of operations. Okay, so definitely I should use a crossover cable. But straight through cable is the cable which is used to connect two different devices. For example, where I use straight through cable, I can connect a switch and a computer using straight through cable. I can connect a router and a switch using straight through cable. I can connect a router and a server, for example, server, using a straight through cable. So different devices can be connected using straight through cable. Similar devices can be connected using crossover cable. So first thing is you need to change the cable. So here the options are: a crossover cable should be used in place of straight through cable. Okay. The second option is a rollover cable should be used in place of straight through cable. See, there is nothing to do with rollover cable here. Next, third one is the subnet mask should be set to 255.255.255.192. And the fourth option is a default gateway needs to be set on each host. And the fifth one is subnet mask should be set to 255.255.255.0. See, here I told you rollover cable, there is no need to use rollover cable. Option 3 will see. The subnet mask should be set to 255.255.255.192. See, you can see the IP address. First one uses 20. If you use 192, 20 cannot be used. You cannot use 20 because the subnet mask itself is 192. You can use any address after that. Okay, so this option is not available. Next, the default gateway needs to be set on each host. See, I am dealing directly with the sender and the receiver. Computer A is connected to computer B. There is no switch involved. There is no router involved. So there is no need to configure any default gateway. So this option is also alleviated, or we can remove this option. What is the final option? The subnet mask should be set to 255.255.255.0. See, you can see here the subnet mask of computer A is 240. 255.255.240, but the IP address is 20. So it is not coming under the same subnet. It is not coming under the same subnet. But you can take receiver B, it is coming under the subnet. So what happens? There is a subnet mismatch between sender A and receiver B. So what we need to do is we can set to the standard subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. So what we can do for this particular question is we can choose option 1 and option 5. Okay, so a crossover cable should be used in place of straight through cable, and a subnet mask should be set to 255.255.255.0. So for answering this question, we have option D. Option D is 1 and 5 only applicable, so that we can make sender A to ping receiver B. Okay, so for this scenario, the options are D. D will be the option. So you can change straight through cable into a crossover cable and reset the subnet mask into 255.255.255.0. I think this is the scenario. Next, another question. Again, this is based on IP address aggregation. Okay, see, we can do subnetting and we can do IP address aggregation. Okay, so what we can do, we can combine set of IP addresses. See, this will avoid unwanted broadcast when it comes to routing. See, if you use OSPF, OSPF is going to perform a lot of broadcast for LSP. That is, link state packet is transmitted among the nodes. So it is going to perform LSP transmission based upon timely as well as triggered updates. Okay, so when we have so many subnets, okay, for example, I have subnetted, there are 4 or 5 subnets, even 16 or 32 subnets under a one particular network. So it is advisable for us to use network address aggregation rather than using the same subnet in order to avoid broadcast. So the question is given here. The 30th question is, if an Ethernet port on a router were assigned an IP address of 172.16.112.1/25, what would be the valid subnet address of this particular host? So the question is very straight. What can be a valid subnet address I can choose for the given IP address? So I will solve this here. So the given IP address is 172.16.112, that is 112.0, sorry, 1 slash 25 is the prefix. 25 is the prefix means I am masking first 25 bits for network portion. The remaining is meant for host portion. It means it is coming under the subnet of 255.255.255. If you mask the first subnet, it is 128. So this is the subnet mask. Okay. So if prefix is 25, the subnet mask will be 255.255.128. But what options we have here, you see? We have 172.16.112.0, 172.16.0.0.0, 172.96.0.0.0, 172.16.255.0.0.0. So what they are asking is, what would be the valid subnet address for this particular host? They are asking about the network address. So what we need to find out is the network address. So in this case, if I use this, I am using 172.16.112.1, but here in my option, there is no subnet mask, 255.255.255.128. Okay, my address starts with 1. Okay, that is fine. So what actually they have done here is they have done an address aggregation. Okay, so what they have done is they have converted this 255.255.255.128, or they have rolled over this 128 into a broad class C subnet mask. So what they have done is they have used 255.255.255.0 as a subnet mask. They have used this as a subnet mask. So now we know if this is the subnet mask, what can be the network address? The network address is 172.16.112.0/25, or otherwise this 255.255.255.0. See, what we used to do is, so whenever we perform address aggregation to calculate the network address, we will calculate to the closest class. So here we have borrowed only 1 bit from the host portion. So what they have done is they have rolled off that one particular bit, and they have joined this subnet under a class C subnet mask, that is 255.255.255.0. So for this 30th question, your options are going to be, four options are given. The answer is going to be 172.16.112.0. Okay, this will be the option. For answering this, we need to know address aggregation under subnet masking. Okay, so there are two things. One is subnetting and another one is supernetting. This is the concept of supernetting. Okay, I am having so many subnets. I'm just bringing it to a supernet. So in this case, my subnet 128 is brought into a supernet called 0. That is 255.255.128 has brought back to 255.255.255.0. I have rolled off this. This is called supernetting. Okay, so this is all about the basic networking questions. So the questions what I have chosen here are all basic questions, but all the questions are appeared in competitive exams. Okay, so I hope this session would have been helpful for you. So yes, if you have any feedback or if you have any doubts, you can ask me now.
Participants, do you have any questions? If you have any questions, you can ask now.
Dear friends, yes, feel free to ask. So even whatever we taught now, right, if your question lies out of this particular area what we covered, yes, there is no issues. But if I know the answer, definitely I'm happy to share the answer here. Yes, if you have any queries, feel free to ask.
Okay, Dhananjalian, thank you very much, Dhananjalian sir, for sharing your knowledge with us. The session was very helpful, and the next session is scheduled on Wednesday, that is July 15th at same time. So I request all the participants to join for the next session. Now I request all the participants to fill the feedback form. So the feedback form will be available only for the 15 minutes. So don't share this feedback link.
Okay, sir. Praveen sir, is it? Shall we wind up?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, then you
Dear
can.
participants, I feel I think I'm not getting any queries. Okay, everyone, dear sirs and madams, and students. This is a you know what like I enjoyed this session. Yes, if is there any what like thing like I can improve? Yes, please leave it in the comment box. Yes, surely in the future, what like sessions I would like to improve. Yes, thank you very much. Thanks a lot for listening to me very patiently throughout this 1 hour session, and thank you so much. Okay, thank you, Praveen sir.
Thank you, Dhananjalian.
Okay.
Participants, if you have any questions, you can post your questions to our official mail ID, that is sttpec2020@gmail.com. Participant, please fill the feedback form. So now the feedback form is available in the chat box. Please fill the feedback form within 15 minutes. Don't share this feedback.
Praveen sir, shall I leave?
Yeah, you can wind up, Dhananjalian.
Okay, sir. Thank you all. Thank you once again.
Praveen sir, stop recording.
Arun, சொல்லுங்க. Okay, sorry.